All right. Thank you, Representative. We will come to order. We've got a couple of items to handle with. To start with, I would recognize Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Wednesday when we met, Mr. Chair, you were very complimentary of the representative from Atchison and on the Pan and Panda bill. And I just wanted my distinguished friend from Topeka to know that I'm from Atchison and I'm a representative, but you weren't talking about me. And the last thing I'd ever do is get in an argument with him. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you for the clarification. Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. He may have been from Atchison, but we have adopted him in Southeast Kansas. He's now one of our own.
All right. Thank you all. Anything else for the good of the committee? Seeing none at the moment. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification and the reminders to our distinguished colleague from Shawnee. So anyway, committee, with that, we would look at taking up a couple of items. One is Senate Bill 199, and to just get it back in mind, I'd ask the reviser to give us an overview of Senate Bill 199.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee. Senate Bill 199 amends KSA 40-2, 193. It would bring existing state law into line with the federal definition of a short-term limited duration health insurance policy. The bill, under current law, a short-term limited duration health insurance policy may be 6 or 12 months in duration and may be renewed only once, regardless of the policy duration. This bill would amend the definition to make it a policy that is less than 12 months in duration and that offers renewal or extension periods up to a maximum policy period of 36 total months. And I can stand for questions.
Are there questions for the reviser? Seeing none, I would ask the committee's wishes on the bill. Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that, excuse me, the current bill allows 2 years, I think, max on it right now. Is that correct? You can up one.
Absolute maximum.
Right. All right. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I would like to propose tabling Senate Bill 199. I think we have it for 2 years right now. I think it would be important to maybe get some information on how it has worked and how long people have used it and what it's been used for, or just how it's been used. So I would like to table this until July 1 of 2022.
Thank you. I have a motion. I'm going to check with the reviser quickly if I am at this, and the intent is clear, yes, but the process, am I able to go to table a motion before I have a motion on the table? Thank you. I appreciate that. It agreed to by the distinguished representative we've been speaking about before. So I have a motion to table. Do I have a second? Seconded by Representative Miller. It is a debatable motion. Not debatable. All right, we go. Motion to table. Motion is to table until July 1. All of those in favor of tabling until July 1 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? No. The noes appear to have it.
Division.
Division is called. Those in favor of tabling, please raise your right hand. And thank you. Those against? Same. I have a count of 6 to 8. Is that consistent with what others count? On that count, the motion fails. So thank you, Representative. Returning to desires on the bill, were you still signaling on the motion, Representative Topical, or did you?
No, I have a question.
Okay.
So bills die every 2 years on the cycle. And so if this bill were to have been tabled, how could it have been brought up again if the bill would have died? So
Yeah. So
that
in
was
thi-
my only question. And
in this,
so how long would this bill be alive?
well, if we tabled it until July 1, then it would not, as all of the bills will die at the end of the session. So, yeah, what's that?
So, Mr. Chairman, so it's still alive and you're still wanting to know what we want to do with it? Okay.
Correct. So, and I misspoke on the vote. The vote was 7-8, so. And there's no Representative Proctor.
Well, since nobody else is going to do it, Mr. Chair, I move that we move Senate Bill 199 favorable for passage.
Thank you, motion by Representative Proctor, seconded, first I saw was Representative Garber, so I'll go with that, but thanks, I got a few there, and I might have had others to look at. Discussion. Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think we've discussed this before, but what this bill doesn't do is take care of pre-existing conditions. If somebody gets sick, yes, they can continue the short term, but they're not going to be covered for that. They're going to have to get trailer insurance. So if they get cancer, the wife gets pregnant, any of that sort of thing, they're going to have to go out and get a trailer for. And I can tell you right now, insurance is not going to insure somebody when they know they're pregnant or if they know they have cancer, because they know what the challenge and the cost is going to be. So this is not really offering any kind of safety net to those when they get it and then a problem comes. It can be heart, it can be diabetes, it can be tumor, it can be cancer. There's so many things that can come up that none of us know from day to day. If you're in a horrible car accident, you're going to be unlimited and it's going to bankrupt you, or it will bankrupt a young family. And it could bankrupt any family if you don't have large savings. And the thing is, this is supposed to be for limited time, gap insurance. But if it's 2 years, you're pretty lucky if something hasn't happened. After that, things begin to happen, and we know that young people can get cancer, they can have heart attacks, they can get diabetes. There are a lot of things, and they're not going to be covered. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will be voting against this motion.
Thank you. Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be voting in favor of this motion because some insurance is better than no insurance. And the folks that are going to be getting this insurance are people that for one reason or another don't have an alternative. If, I feel like a lot of the opponent testimony that we heard was comparing this to a non-existent option of total coverage for everyone, which is not a bill that's on the table. So I will be supporting this motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Further questions or discussion? Representative Osmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've actually been on short-term insurance before, probably about 8 years ago. It was when I was going between jobs. I needed it for about a month or so as a stopgap, and so I have a little bit of experience in it. And I know, just from my experience, it didn't cover anything. And I know that I prayed every single day that I wouldn't get sick or my family wouldn't get sick. During that stopgap time period, I read through the documentation and I understood what the ramifications were, and I figured some insurance probably is better than no insurance, and so I just went with it. But I also know, or at least I believe, that most people that look at this short-term insurance don't read all the fine print. Most people don't realize until it is too late just how little to nothing this covers. And when we talk about short-term insurance, what I also know is that 3 years is not short-term. It is not a stopgap. This is someone's insurance until they get catastrophically sick and then go bankrupt. And that's not something that I want to support. This is an end run around the ACA. That's basically what this is. And I'm not trying to take away the legitimate needs of short-term insurance, but it really is just an end run around the ACA. And I realize some people might say, well, good. But the problem really is this. You ask someone what they want out of the ACA, like coverage for pre-existing conditions. It is overwhelmingly supported, overwhelmingly across party lines. You just ask them that question, should we cover pre-existing conditions? They would say yes. And yet this insurance does not do that. And I don't want to give people the option to extend that for 3 years because all it is going to do is bankrupt people. So, the last thing that I would say is this. If we look at just the testimony, if we don't even look at the list, we just look at the testimony, who do we have on each side? And we have the drafter of the bill and we have 2 think tanks on one side. And then we have a number of organizations committed to the well-being of people's health on the other side. And I ask which side we want to support. For all of those reasons, I can't see a reason to extend the length of time that you would have for this short-term policy, and I will be voting against SB 199.
Representative Topliker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just looking at the bill history, and it looked like it had bipartisan support coming out of the Senate, passing 27-6. And I'm not an expert on this, but I think it maybe reasonably could go to the full House for debate. So I would vote in favor.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My wife and I both started Medicare January 1. I didn't do some paperwork right, so hers actually didn't start till February 1. So again, I prayed for a month that nothing would happen, but whether I had short-term insurance or no insurance, we would have went bankrupt. So that would have been either way. So little insurance is better than no insurance. So thank you.
Further discussion? Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been dealing with a medical condition for the past 30 years, and I've always had to take that into account as my pre-existing condition when I bought insurance. And when I change employers and change insurance, I usually keep the previous insurance through COBRA till my pre-existing period is over. And it's just, I mean, if people are denied this and and they have a pre-existing condition, like Representative Smith said, they're going to be in trouble either way. So I think I'll be supporting this bill because I think something's better than nothing. Thank you.
Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also have had a pre-existing condition for the last 30 years. I've had type 1 diabetes since I was a child. I also work as a medical social worker, And I help folks get insurance in their times of need, and most of them are extremely sick when they need it. Not once have I seen that an insurance of this type would have helped any of my clients. It certainly would have never helped myself. I was uninsured for quite a number of years before the ACA came into effect, and thankfully I weathered that fairly well, but it was very difficult. However, regardless, insurance of this type wouldn't help anyone in my situation, let alone my children, who even if they, grew up and didn't have a potential pre-existing condition, it sounds like from the testimony that we've heard that any condition may be found as pre-existing after they've already been treated and then denied. That's a major concern for me. And I think that another concern that I do have is that it seems like when folks are talked into these plans, they aren't given the full facts and information. There's a lot of push towards insurance brokers to push these plans out, to offer folks a stopgap, which on the surface seems reasonable, right? We all want to make sure that we're protected, our family's health is protected. But I think that there are so few regulations with this type of insurance. I feel like there are so few benefits that we've seen and just so many complaints that it would be really risky to support this. And so with that and with my constituents, my own family in mind, I will not be supporting this bill.
Further discussion? Representative Neighbor.
I'm a retired medical administrator, and I have dealt with insurance for over 40 years. I can tell you that when insurance companies want to sell you something, it's not all going to be in 12 point. Some of it's an 8, and I've seen it as low as 6. Now, all of us who are at this table that are a little bit over 30 know that reading print that small is usually something you avoid because you can't read it. But that's what's out there. And there have been no rules that said you have to create this in a point where people can read it. How many of you, when you go to buy something like a TV or insurance or a car, read the fine print? Because if you do, you'd be there many more hours than you normally are, because there are pages and pages and pages of warranty, descriptions, definitions, and all of that. So if you hand this to someone who is of our age, filling in a gap, how many do you think are going to be able to read all of the fine print? It doesn't happen. I know it doesn't happen because I've had patients come in and look at insurance and say, this is what I have. And I take their booklet and I go, did you read this? Well, no, I never saw it. It's just like when kids take home handbooks that they're given at school that say, if you break this rule, you're going to be expelled. They give them a book to sign so they know what they shouldn't do. Most of those take it home and mom and dad go, sign. And then you have the child that does something, and then they come in and it's, well, my child is a good child. Yeah, they're usually a good child. They just did something stupid. They just did something stupid, like blow up a toilet in the boys' bathroom. It's happened. Shawnee Mission East, I know, I was on the school board. Or they have a gun in the back of their car because they went hunting with dad or their brother or something like that over a weekend, and they forgot that they had it in the car. They didn't mean to have it in the back, but they have it in the back. But yet they signed that book. The mother or the father signed that book. That kid's out of school now for a year. Knife, rifle, anything like that. Star. And I bring that to you because we can give people a lot of things to read and a lot of things to study. but I think most of you would agree they don't read all of the fine print. And the fine print is what gets them in trouble. They're good people. It's not that they're bad people. But they didn't read the fine print, and now they are excluded. And now they have $35,000, $40,000 in hospital or medical charges. They can't afford that. And it's all on a false hope. Some insurance that doesn't do anything, you're telling me some that won't do anything is better than none? Because what they have isn't going to get them. It's not going to get them through that hole. So I just want to bring that up. I haven't had experience in this for many, many years. And this is not the way to go to make sure that our communities and our population have medical insurance that is worthwhile. Thank you.
Representative Toplicker and then Berquist.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding is that a little bit more looking at this, that 35 states have already passed this kind of language, and it just gives the option to purchase another year without being re-underwritten. And that, to the point about, you know, questions about the legality of it all, that they're regulated by the insurance department, and that they must state up front what is not covered. So, you know, I mean, if you're getting that up front, I mean, you can, I mean, I don't know who's not reading the print, but they have to state up front what is covered and what isn't covered. Thank you.
Would recognize our reviser, Reviser Ma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a point of clarification, this product, short-term limited duration insurance, is not regulated by the state. It would be regulated under the federal government.
So thank you for the clarification. Representative Berquist and then Proctor.
I think my thoughts have been shared. Thank you.
Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just like to highlight one more thing. Is, you know, some folks here decry the evils of short-term insurance. This is a thing already. We're not having a vote over whether short-term insurance should exist. We're having a vote over how long a person can choose of their own free will to remain on short-term insurance. And a person who's, you know, been on it for 1 year or 2 years is probably satisfied with the product enough that they have decided to stay on it, or because of their life circumstances are simply not able to get into a different insurance product. So this is not a creation of a insurance product that does not already exist. This is simply deciding how long somebody can remain on it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too have a pre-existing condition. They can't insure it. It's a personality disorder, nor can they fix it. Is this substantially the same bill that I voted no on last year and the governor vetoed? And I see that the bill's been amended. I don't need every detail, but that's why I use the word substantially. If there's substantial changes from the one that was passed last year, I'd like to know what those are.
So if my recollection is correct, do you have a direct answer to that? So
It's actually, Mr. Chair, thank you. It's actually the identical bill to what the good representative voted no on last year.
and did we have it on its own, or was it in a package with some other items?
It was on its own, and then it was incorporated into a committee report, conference committee report.
So, thank you.
I voted no even before I found out what the representative from Leavenworth thought of it, so thank you.
Further discussion? Revisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention one other thing. As I mentioned when I briefed the bill originally, because this is a holdover from last year, I would need some leeway to do a technical amendment to update the statute reference. The bill itself actually amends KSA 2020 SUP, and we're not in SUPs anymore because we've done a hardbound print of statutes, so I need to eliminate the supplemental reference through a technical amendment, so it would be passed as amended report.
Okay. Thank you. So we don't necessarily have to make a formal amendment, but there would be a committee report. It would be amended and then would then return to the Senate rather than going direct to the governor. Is that correct? Okay. I wasn't sure if it was so technical that it could be within continuing on the process or not. Thank you. Representative Miller.
What we've done in other committees is on that point, just give her authority to make technical changes.
So thank you. Thank you. And I think that we could do that as we go, and we might ask the maker of the motion to make the final motion to be such. So, and we'll come back to you on that if there's no further discussion. If we are finished with the thoughts that I had, there were just a couple as we talked about it. I don't know that the intent of any conferees, I can clearly say which are focused on the health and well-being of who are their clients. And then I think all insurance policies can be challenging to get my arms around, and whatever health insurance I'm dealing with, I may have some challenge of understanding exactly what's covered and what is not, and this is not alone in that. Is one of the things I always have to be careful of, trying to get an idea of how that particular policy fits the specific situation that I'm trying to look at. So just wanted to add a little more on that, but if there's no further discussion, Representative Proctor, you can close on the motion, and you might add with the authority for the revisor to make technical amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close on my motion with the authority for the revisor to make any technical amendments that are required.
Thank you. And it's still okay with the second? Representative Garber? So with that, you've heard the motion by Representative Proctor to pass 199 favorably as amended technically. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The division is called. Those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, those opposed? And on my count, the motion passes. So, and if anyone is different, would like a recorded no, Representative Osman, no, Representative Meyer, no, Representative Neighbor. Other recorded votes? Seeing none, thank you, committee, for your attention. The next bill I was going to have us discuss was 2612, and there was some dissent in the committee on whether this was a useful way to begin addressing anything or not a useful way to begin addressing anything. So I'd even just get a sense it's not one that has a group of proponents behind it begging for this particular solution. But I'm curious if the committee thinks that is a way to address part of a solution going forward. And what those wishes might be. Is it helpful to have an overview from the revisor? Yeah, okay. If the revisor would give us an overview of 2612.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2612 would add an additional retirement benefit option for members of the Keepers 1 and 2 group. The bill would allow a KPERS 1 or 2 member to choose to receive a self-funded cost of living adjustment whereby the member's retirement benefit would initially be reduced at retirement in accordance with actuarial factors that would be established by the board. And then thereafter, the retirement benefit would increase by a fixed percentage over time. And one or more fixed percentages would be established by the board. Currently, KPERS 3, the cash balance plan members, do have a optional self-funded cost of living adjustment feature. So this would just allow that for the existing KPERS 1 and 2 group as well.
Thank you. Any questions for the reviser? Representative Neighbor.
I don't know that it's for the reviser necessarily, but you can certainly chime in if you think what I'm asking needs definition. Having been up here this is my 12th year, I know that all of us that have been up here for a while, or those that have been retired from as an employee of a school district or the state, our older retirees have continually asked for a cost of living raise. This will not cover that. This covers tier 1 and tier 2, I believe. Is that correct?
So yes, it would cover any future it would provide an option for any future retirees, but currently would not going back.
And so I have a concern as to how we would be able to discuss this or educate the public on this, because we have had so much input from retirees that say, we need a cost of living raise, and here we are proposing this for the newer group. I think it's going to be difficult to sell. It won't be difficult to sell for the new people coming in and doing it, but it's going to be a hard sell for those who have retired and have asked for a cost of living raise. So at this time, I have difficulty supporting this bill. I think it's got some work that needs to be done, and we need to start laying groundwork if we're going to do something like this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the spirit of bipartisanship, I totally agree with the previous representative. I'm afraid that this is sort of a Band-Aid. We're going to stick on KPERS and say, great, we fixed the COLA problem. I would like to see us address the larger problem of the folks who are already retired who haven't had a COLA for 20 years. If the committee moves it out, I'll support the whole legislature getting a crack at this, but I'm not a big fan of this bill, Mr. Chair.
Other discussion? So I would agree, it does not fix the problem that folks are begging to have addressed in terms of a COLA for existing retirees. The goal of the bill would be in the future that folks have an option, but it only addresses that group and it only provides an option. I don't know if there's a way to provide a self-funded COLA option to folks who are already retired. Trying to see if I'm striking fear in the eyes of any of the KPERS folks to calculate what that would be. Yeah, the reason that this one can work is there's not a fiscal note because it's borne by the retiree making the choice, and that is different from what some of the others have been in the past. So, and it may not, I don't know how many people would select the COLA option, and I don't know if we have any data yet. Did you give us data on how many? We don't have enough Tier 3 retirees to know. So we would have a lot more in Tier 1 and Tier 2 to find out. So doesn't fix existing problems is a possible fix. Fix may not even be the right word. It provides options for the future retirees. Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just figure if this were to pass, it would be awful hard to explain to people who've been on KPERS for years, the people we are hearing from asking for a COLA raise, to explain why the new people are getting one and they aren't. And I pretty much agree with everyone who says that this is just a Band-Aid, but it's not even a Band-Aid on the wound. It's like if you cut your arm and you put a Band-Aid on the other arm. Thank you.
Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I think this is a confusing bill because if someone would take a 2% cost of living increase, that would be subtracted from their annuity. And then we had a 4.5%, 5%, 7%, 18% inflation, then they'd be wanting a COLA on top of that. So I think this is confusing to do the, even if you said you were wanted to set aside a 1% or 2%, the reality of all that would be is if you really wanted to, and I know it'd be hard, but you could take money out of your CAPERS account, set aside 5% or whatever amount that you wanted to set aside in your own investment program, just like as if it was your income, you would set aside 5% or 10% of your income to invest on your own to make your own COLA. Thank you.
Any other comments? So I think currently this has one vote in committee and the chair doesn't get to vote until a tie, so it may have 0 initially. So thanks for laughing with me on that. Where I find it useful, even just as an exercise, is to get an idea of what the cost of living would cost as I look at the change in an initial benefit if I wanted a benefit that increased over time versus having the highest steady benefit and then wanting an increase on that. So that is where I saw it both as a chance to have that flexibility for folks would be important to in the future and to get an idea of what the cost is. But I think someone commented about one person on the committee that liked to look a lot at the numbers. And anyway, but is there any further interest on this particular bill? If we're not, I think we're wrapped up with our work at this point in time. So with that, we're adjourned until after turnaround. Thanks. Have a great week.